All right, what's up, everyone? Thank you so much for tuning in. Really excited for this quick 20-minute part two for you on gaining adoption of your sales playbook. Whether a lot of sales leaders right now, CROs, are thinking, gosh, customer behavior is changing, the economy. How do we adapt? We've invested a lot of money. How do we actually get people to use it more effectively? We think we need to invest money. We need to revamp our playbook. It's a little stale. How do we get people to be successful with it in general? So let's jump into my top tips here for how to get adoption. If you don't know Skaled, we are a 40+ person global consulting firm. We help companies with modern sales process, modern sales technology, and really the intersection of those two to build out world-class modern sales organizations. So if you are trying to redo your ramp your playbook, you are trying to inject new life into the way that your team goes to market from an intent-based selling, or moving away from that kind of old school qualification mindset, hit me up. If you did not get a chance to see the first session, please make sure we did it with our friends over at Speckit, and we can talk about what goes into a great playbook, because hey, what goes into the playbook matters as well too. So what I hope all of you take away from this is, like, you deployed your playbook, right? Deployment, my friends, is step zero. And that's where most people, they spend all this time on new content and new this, we get it live and with these e-learning modules, and then it's like the deployment is blah. And then we wonder why it doesn't work. How do you actually get good enablement around this? So where it's something the sales team's excited about. How can you actually measure the effectiveness of your new playbook? And then how often to make changes, right? I get that question all the time. Jake, like, yeah, this seems interesting, but like, how often should we be updating our playbook? And the answers might shock you, because the reality is your playbook never should, your playbook never goes, is never done, right? And I'd say that a lot to folks, like, they look at like this playbook as this big process, and it's like, no, it's just you're just at the beginning. So why don't playbooks land, right? So we go and invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, or maybe 50, or however much you invested, to get these new playbooks, and then we're like, why aren't people using them? This is, I think, a fantastic stat. 55% of leaders have rolled out a new process, half. 16 are very confident their reps are following them. That is a lot of wasted time. If you can imagine 55% of folks taking the time to go ahead and revamp this, and then less than 1 in 5 reps, we think, are actually confident using them, right? What we found is that people do enjoy a better process, right? So for whenever people have rolled out a new process, excellent or good is like by far, right? Only poor is only, 1 out of 4. So, well, what's the issue then? Like, why is there a gap? If people think that like the playbooks are good and like their new methodology is good, like why are we struggling so much? And the real struggle point is that how we think about a project like this is usually, one, on the intake, we don't get alignment with the right stakeholders. We don't make frontline leaders a part of the process. We don't make them a part of the development process. We don't make them a part of the coaching process. And again, we think of the deployment, we spend so much time just trying to get the stuff done to get to deploying at an SKO or whatever it is, that we don't think about a lot of these things. Getting the right people aligned, making sure that they're involved in the development. And then this third one, this is the one that's almost universally missed. How are my leaders supposed to actually coach to this thing? I cannot tell you how many playbook deployments we see, command of the message, etc. They don't accompany with the proper coaching. Right? How do I actually go and do these things after I've implemented it? And then that they launch thinking they're done. They're like, yep, it's deployed, we're good. Yeah, we need some reinforcement, but the team's got it. My friends, it's a very terrible, terrible way to think about it. The reality is there's a lot more work that usually needs to get done. And this is one of my favorite stats. We did this. Companies struggle. Why? Why do they struggle after the deployment? So, Jake, what do you mean it's terrible that we don't do it? Well, because it was skimmed over in onboarding. It's like each section of the playbook got like a half a day. Maybe some sections got a full day, right? And then once I get in the field, my managers didn't even pay attention to it. So think about this. 90% of the reason that the playbooks fail, it's not the content. It's almost never the content. It's that, one, people aren't exposed to it up front. Two, they're not reinforced once they get in the field. And so if you're going to do a playbook deployment, you have to think about those two things as well too, right? For me, again, the lack of coaching, this is the one we've seen. We come in on the back of failed methodology launches and playbook launches all the time. It's almost always this, that we didn't get buy-in from the leaders, we didn't get buy-in from the right people, and it just kind of is, just like half being used by people, who kind of latch onto it. And then the other piece is like real enablement resources that, sales is not like other parts of the business. You have to actually like make sure, hey, sales leaders, will you actually use this? Will you actually coach to this? So as you think about developing your playbook and building it, are you also thinking about, do I have enablement resources that will actually be used, or are sales leaders going to start to recreate it in the field as soon as we roll it out? So I just think that these are two really big ones for all of you. Again, like just thinking through the roadblocks. It's not the content. It's the change management. It's how you bring leadership along for the content. It's how you bring them, as a part of the journey, to where they feel like, hey, yeah, wow, this is really something that I can, latch onto. This is really something that I, believe in, etc. So for all of you out there, like really think about that as a really kind of big component of this, because I can tell you it makes a big difference. All right, so let's dump into this a little bit more. All right, so tremendous amount of time is spent with supporting reps, right? We spend all this time around the playbook training the reps, right? How much you personally spend each week answering questions about tools? 4 to 6 hours is what leaders said. Actually, how about this? What is that? 72% said over 4 hours on things that should have been covered in a good playbook. Where do you go to find answers? I go to my boss. So you can have the best CMS, the best, the best whatever you want system, content management, learning management, whatever. And at the end of the day, I don't have to go anywhere. That means I don't even know. 82% go to their leader. So just think about that. And again, then the next is colleague, right? A very fast follow to knowledge base. And just think, they go to Google before they go to your internal LMS. That's a crazy one, right? Because if I Google half this stuff, I can probably find a pretty dang good answer out there too, but it might not be the answer that you want them to have because it's not in the playbook. So again, our methodology and our process, we really think about leaders have to be trained first. If leaders aren't bought in, they don't understand the process, how can you expect them when the 82% go to them to give the right answer? And then two, it's again, making sure that they're a part of the strategy and content development. Frontline leaders are the key to an effective playbook launch, right, as a part of this. And because when you do loop them in, right, again, reps or the leaders are the one who can make sure they're actually doing it. They can do the due diligence. The leaders are the ones that can help to coach them as a part of this, right? The leaders are the ones that can help them to think about developing more strategic skills as a part of this too, not just the tactical execution of the playbook, but what happens next. So when we think about these, these kind of stats here, et cetera, we've developed coaching programs for some of the largest tech companies you can imagine out there, LinkedIn and a host of others. When leaders understand a playbook and then they know how to coach to the playbook, they have a much higher win rate. And so again, I want all of you to think out there that this coaching and this, this idea of like, well, we've got a playbook, we just skim over it and then we just say, hey, good luck. You're not going to see these types of results. There's just no way. Next, digital enablement. Okay. So we've talked about the number one resource place people go is they go to their leader. Well, the next step was digital enablement, right? So again, many times we see people's playbook, there's no like universal way to find it. It's just kind of like all over the place as a part of this, right? What digital tool requires the most training? Salesforce, and then sales engagement. I don't think there's any big shockers there, right? That Salesforce is, kind of where they live. Outreach, SalesLoft, these other tools, that's where they, that's where they are in the day-to-day. And so, these tools require a lot of reinforcement. And we haven't even really talked about that, right? Which is your sales playbook and just the amount of tech and how you describe the tech that needs to go into your playbook so your team actually knows how to leverage it and get the most out of it. And so again, we got to make sure that we have all this insight into our playbook as well too. For us, we're big fans of a tool. I mentioned our partner Speckit in the beginning. why digital enablement, you call it just-in-time enablement, is so important is, imagine, again, it goes back to that reinforcement. Imagine having an overlay to where when I'm in the tool trying to use it from that I was told to use in my playbook, and I can just get the little spec here, 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 here. And so we're big fans of this type of like real-time enablement and tools like Spec-It, that I'm in the tool, I'm in my workflow, I don't have to leave, and I can get the answer. So if you want to bring that leadership time down from 82% and continue to create, get up knowledge base, implementing a tool like this is really important. Metrics, right? At the end of the day, we're doing a playbook for what, right? We're doing a playbook because we want results, right? At the end of the day, let's hope that's what we want. A lot of people don't know even if it's working, right? Sales leaders must have like in-depth training. 39% can find out, and 44% don't have any insights into reps training engagement. Just think about this. So we're talking about a new playbook. We're talking about these tools that we know that we need to use. We don't know if they actually know how to use them or not, right? We have no way to track any of this. So, again, what we want to think about is there's the anecdotal, right? And I think that this is part of it. It's like we really look at anecdotal as like the main way that we track effectiveness of a playbook. It's my opinion as a leader of how well Johnny's doing at, XYZ. The reality is there are a lot more, and most people should be taking a mix of approaches, right? A data-driven and anecdotal piece. On the management, listening to calls, are they using the messaging, right? If you use a conversational intelligence tool, you can really quickly see, hey, are they using the messaging, right? Pipeline velocity, right? This is a big one. A good sales playbook should increase their pipeline velocity or decrease their sales cycle. So again, for a lot of you, I'm thinking about, there's these kind of like, did they look at the playbook? How much time have they spent? But at the end of the day, are their deals moving? A good playbook, if executed correctly, means I learned how to do this really well, which gets me to the next step. I learned how to do that really well, it gets me to the next step, right? And so for me, I think of that there's like this kind of mix of metrics that you're looking at to understand playbook effectiveness. There's like the calls, and I can kind of anecdotally listen. There's the view, hey, this person actually is going through it. I can tell that they're immersed. And then there's the numbers that come out of the back end. And so, we're getting ready to kick off a big project thinking right after the 4th. And that's the big piece. How do we track effectiveness? It's like, well, at the end of the day, it should be a decrease in sales cycle. Depending on the parts of the playbook you fix, it could be an increase in average sales price. But there's some very tangible sales metrics that are out there. So last but certainly not least is this idea of the ever evolving playbook, that when we think about adoption and why adoption doesn't happen, right? I've kind of talked you through kind of the main culprits. I've talked to you through what happens, what doesn't happen. But I'll tell you this, your playbook needs to be a living and breathing thing. We're now working with companies where our main job is to just do monthly or quarterly refreshes on the playbook, because they have a new product that comes out. They're trying to sell to a new buyer. They learn and they gain insights from that buyer. They have a big win in the sector, and we want to capture that. So I just want you all to think about this, that your product changes, that again, you need to have a mechanism to constantly be updating the playbook, right? Buyers, do you have a new persona? Are you learning more about the personas that you sell into? Is there another persona that you're finding that's involved in the process today? All of that needs to get captured. Industry trends, this one is so key, right? There's a stat, we don't have it in here, but it's, leaders take meetings with people who make them smarter. And the key is like, I can't remember the exact stat. It's like the number 2 is like, this person is very clear they've done research on me and research on my industry. So industries are evolving, markets are going up and down. That's your job to make sure those are up to date. And then process and workflow. Hey, how do you use this latest and greatest tool? How do we get more effectiveness out of it? How are the best of the best people using these tools? And again, that should be evolving. That should be growing over time. And so for everyone out there, again, as you're thinking about these different methods, you're thinking about these different ways to drive adoption, you've got to think your playbook has to always be evolving too, right? Or you're going to be left behind, right? Macro changes, yeah, this could be the big stuff, right? Maybe you added a new technology or something like that. Micro changes, scripting, messaging, just imagine if you've got 10 reps or 100 reps or 1,000 reps, the amount of data points you're pumping through a system, why not go and keep updating the best practices? Keep updating the best practices. So then every new generation of people that goes through this gets better and better and better and better. as a part of this. So yeah, it's pretty important here when you think about this, that you don't have to update the whole playbook, but that's kind of how we look at it, right? It's like we're gonna update the playbook, and it becomes this really, really big, huge thing, right? And the reality is, well, you can update parts of it on the micro that will actually have the biggest, impact here. So just some ideas here on some things that you can do in the micro team meetings. They're so great. They can pull out so much really cool insight as well too. You can deploy those micro changes. Hey guys, we've got a new discovery script. Here's how we're going to deploy that. Hey team, we've got a new training on how to use this tool. Check out this new spec for it, right? Etc. And then the macro is for those big changes. It could be at a sales kickoff, could be somewhere else. So for everyone out there, building a playbook is step 0. Building it and the initial launch is step 0. Okay. And I'm telling you right now that the main reason that you're not seeing the ROI that you'd like, or you're not seeing the adoption and then therefore not seeing the ROI, at the end of the day, it's all about the return, is that again, like we're not focusing enough on the frontline leaders and the right enablement content to breathe life into it. People don't believe it. Their leaders don't believe it. They're kind of bought in. The content's okay, but it's not in their language. They weren't involved. Next is, again, when managers are involved, you saw 82% go to their manager first. So you need to make sure the people that where your reps already go, that they are the most equipped and most bought into the process, right? I talked a little bit about technology. So number 2, where do they go? They go to technology, a knowledge center. So make sure that knowledge center can start to, the more that knowledge center, there's a correlation. When the knowledge center creeps up, the time with the manager goes down. So if you want your sales manager listening to calls, helping to close deals, those types of things, you need to make sure you've got this just-in-time enablement. And then last, but certainly not least, just understand playbooks are living documents. You don't need to update all of them or, the whole thing every week or every month or every quarter, but you should have the parts of it that need to be updated on a consistent basis and the pieces that go into the macro. So thank you for tuning in, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed this. Feel free, DM me on LinkedIn. You can email me at jake@skaled, JAKE@skaled.com as well too. And I really hope that this helps a lot of you who are out there, really thinking about, your current playbook. Man, we're going to adopt it. If you're not going to think through adoption, then don't go down the journey in the first place. If you think that adoption and how you're going to deploy your new playbook is at a sales kickoff, my friends, you are sadly mistaken. Really deploying change takes time. And if you're a small team of 5 or 10, it can happen pretty quick. But I really hope that this helps all of you out there. Really think through some new ways to gain adoption and make sure that the playbook that you spent so much time sees the light of day and really drives the results that you want. So thanks, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. And we've got some links below for you to check out. If you want to book some time with me or the team, I'm going to put in some links to book time with us and be happy to kind of talk through, what we're seeing in the market. All right. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.